Well, my name is Ignasi Pérez Arnal. I'm the CEO of BIM Academy in Spain, and I will talk about one thing that I have been very worried about during the last years. That is how when we are working with BIM, this BIM can be used in our cities. So how we can make a model, and this model can be managed by the city, let's say politicians, the city managers. And this is something that I couldn't understand why it was so difficult to bring one BIM model to a GIS system. We had the experience in Barcelona, in Catalonia, while we incorporated in the article that it's like a little mandate for Catalonia about BIM, that the last article, at the last moment, we could include the fact that every BIM model from a public project would have to be incorporated in the cartography of our region. So this is easy to say, but it's not so easy to make. So the thing is how this BIM can be incorporated in GIS, how this GIS can be connected to BIM, how we can talk about GeoBIM, as there is a very nice meeting in Amsterdam every year called GeoBIM, and why we can talk about city information modeling or territory information modeling. So, in fact, the thing, well, this is, I will skip this because this is the people that we are working with and the situation that we have. I will talk about some information that we have created around the years and trying to, from the European BIM Summit, I'm directing in Barcelona every year, we are trying to fix how the situation is in each one of the European countries. So in order to exchange or to share what we are doing in Spain, and also the next colleague, David Barco, will explain you in a very, very nice way how is the situation in our country. This is a white book that we made for our regional government, and this is what we are doing in North Macedonia, trying to make the same. So how BIM can be used in the same way that Paul was telling us about metaverse, etc. An European program with some different partners have been done in North Macedonia with one objective. This objective has been to make lower the energetic invoice of the country, and how to use BIM to do that. Also, how we can work in this way, giving some new, let's say, some new meaning for BIM. So Mark was telling us about the science of where by Esri. I think I will be talking about the science of why we are doing this. No? So we are trying to introduce these facts, for example, in the government of North Macedonia, and here also in Brazil and in other countries. No? So we fix this possibility of giving, or this obligation to give the BIM model to the Institute of Cartography and Geography in Catalonia, and then this is following the fact that we were approving in the EU, in the European Union, this directive, the 22 from 2014, that is asking to all the member states that they have to include and use digital and electronic systems. No? So what I was trying to figure out is why, for example, when I'm finishing a BIM model, how I can give this BIM model to my city in order that firemen, health services, police could have this information too. So it's not necessary to know how to, well, if we have 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, etc. But it's so important to know if this kindergarten with a fire right now has 17 or 70 or 700 kids inside the school. So how to use BIM models for that? it was my interest. And we began to make some implementations of BIM in public bodies around Spain. Normally when we are saying public bodies means town halls, or what we have as diputaciones provinciales, so they are another level of government in the province. And then all of this work has different, let's say, different criteria that has to be incorporated as, of course, SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals, but also how the city is working every day. So let's say that we have 4 challenges that we have identified. The first one is how we can incorporate construction 4.0. We have seen the modular houses that Paul is developing, and how we can translate this, or how we can incorporate this in a territory that I would say that when we are talking about not urban territory but rural territory is not more than 1.0. So we do not have so many information about all the agricultural fields, about the farm fields, about mines, etc., etc. No? The second thing is how we can make this mandatory for the town halls. How in Spain, you have here, in UK, for example, I do not know exactly here in Ireland, but we do not have a mandate saying that you have to use BIM. So some ministers in Spain have agreed that they have to ask for BIM in the project. David will talk more about this. But nothing about GIS, and nothing about the connection between BIM and GIS. So what happens with all of this information that we are creating with BIM models that is not incorporated in the cartography and in the geography in our country? The third challenge is how we can mix something that, from my point of view, GIS was existing more before than BIM, and then everybody in Spain is using MicroStation, for example, to try to manage all the parcels or the plots, etc., etc., etc. But we do not have the same system in our town halls to use BIM. So there is no little town hall in Spain that is using BIM. And there is, of course, there is no town hall that are capitals of provinces using BIM. So what we are talking about with this, and the last challenge is how we can make this implementation in our cities to try to democratize all of this stuff. So in the beginning, something that for me is interesting is that for the first time we have all the capacity to make that all information can be in one place. So Mark has demonstrated some works with Granada, etc., but you would have to take all the ordinance from Granada, you would have to take all the information about the rules that you need to make about volumes, depth, etc., number of floors, etc., of the city of Granada, and to incorporate this in order to make some kind of automation of the planning. So, in fact, for construction, in my opinion, we have not realized that we are in the Industrial Revolution 4.0. So it's something that probably we are in the 1.0. We have no mass production in construction. We are not able to use all of IT in the public bodies, and of course, nothing is connected in our buildings. So, for example, right now it's difficult to see this screen because we have too much sunshine, and this too much sunshine is something that is unexpected in Ireland. It's something that, of course, in Barcelona, here we would have dozens of curtains in order to control the sunlight. And this would have to be done in an automatic way. And of course, the same, it could be done with acoustics. So it's something that we have to work with very, very seriously. So in fact, we are not accomplishing the Industrial Revolution 2.0 to 3.0 and 4.0, because at the end we have at the same time two realities. One, That is how we are working the construction. And the second one is how Honda, Toyota, Panasonic are showing us that this is a possibility. And I really agree, and I really want that this situation could make or could survive after or in parallel with the first situation. No? So, for example, I had the experience to have one office in Bangalore in India, and I saw that instead of these people, when we are talking about women in construction, in India, all women are working in the construction field. In Europe, it's really difficult. I do not know in Ireland, but at least in Spain, there is no woman in the field, in the working side. No? So it's something that come on, how we have to deal with this. No? Of course, we have very, very nice works. This is made by Crossrail some years ago, and also thinking about the SAP and under surfaces, and how we can get all of this information being used by our BIM models and in the reverse mode. So something that I love for the first time, and this is an image made by Esri, is the first time that we are not working in a parallel way, but we are working in a really interoperable way. So it's the first time that we are thinking that GIS is interoperating with BIM, and BIM is being interoperated with GIS. After, we have a lot of problems with how we deal with the memory of our computers, the facility of this, etc. But this is something necessary, no? And this is connected. You see what is happening with geographic information systems, and then I arrive to one public body to implant BIM there, and I have to explain why the dimensions of BIM comes from 3D to 7D, no? The 3 dimension till the 7th dimension. And I had, let's say, I had to invent my own theory of the 10 dimensions of BIM in order that people can understand that from 1 to 10 you have different functionalities. The first one is you have to implant BIM in your organization. The second one, second D, we are talking about the workflows of the people, because you are changing all the workflows of the people that is working for you or with you. 3D, you know what is this, 4D, synchro, planification, planning, etc. The 5th dimension is about budgeting, bill of quantities, etc. We agree in the 6th dimension about sustainability, the 7th dimension, FM, AM, facility management, asset management, but until the 10th dimension, I had to invent that the 8th dimension is health and safety, because in Spain, every year, we break the record of people that has died in our works. So we have a statistic that every 2 days, one guy dies in our working sites. And this is Spain. It's not necessary to talk about Qatar, that I think that only for the stadiums, they have more than 5,500 people that has been injured and died in the works. The 9th dimension is about lean construction. So if Paul is talking about modular construction, what do we need? We need lean manufacturing inside our processes. So this is called lean construction, a concept invented by Lauri Koskela from Finland that is really clear that we have to manage the works in another way. And the 10th dimension, it has 2 meanings for me. That is city information modeling and the digital construction, or the industrialized construction. So, in fact, we are able to use a lot of different ways to try to make this connection between BIM and GIS. So this is a good step. And the same when we have IFC, we have discovered with FME, etc., how are the mechanisms to bring one BIM model into one Esri scenario, for example. No? And this is something important because we are not only using Revit, for example. There are hundreds of different software. So we have to solve how ACA software can be incorporated, how Trimble can be incorporated, how Nemetschek can be incorporated, how you can use ArchiCAD, etc. Because you cannot say to all of the architects and engineers in your town hall or working in your city that you have to use only this kind of software. So we have to bring some open solutions to do this. No? So, well, I will not extend this information. You have it in my slides. But the important thing is that now we can do this exchange. So the thing is how this, how important is, for example, something that is so basic that when you have one model to say that this model is in this place, in this site, exactly in these coordinates. And this has been really, really difficult. Really difficult. So it's something that we have to provide better and better in our projects. Well, the challenge too, how we can make mandatory in the public bodies that you have to use BIM. So at the end, EU is saying it's not obliging that you have to use BIM, but it says you may require BIM when you are doing a new competition or a new procurement. And this is one specific article in our directive, but something that we do not have in Spain is something like this. Francis Mount, the Minister of the Cabinet Office in UK in 2011, saying in UK will be leading in 4 years the BIM process. And they are doing this. And so what I'm trying to make is to follow the same ways in order to make the same in my country. No? So here we have, for example, one colleague from India, and there is no mandate about BIM in India. But in India, we have factories of 40 people, 80 people making BIM for all over the world. So you have the biggest BIM factories, but BIM is not used in India. Come on. So this is something that we have to change. So the same, you can see here in France, and I'm collecting these images, the same in Germany, the same in Singapore, the same, this is was the president in Chile, and was saying, the president of one country, that the country is adopting BIM. And this is something that we have to make another approach in order to push BIM in this way. No? So from my point of view, it's not enough to have all of this in a very well solution if our politicians and the managers of our cities are not including BIM in their way of working. No? Well, this is about how we are doing this in a town hall of 40,000 inhabitants, how this town hall can follow any claim and any information required by one citizen, and all of this is digitalized in their processes. No? So they have this, let's say, commanders, we call it cuadro de mando in Spanish, that means that you have the control of everything that is happening in your city. So you see gardens, you see punctual maintenance, mobility, cleaning, disinfection of rats, containers, etc. Everything is controlled in a digital way with OpenBIM. No? There are the other big projects, like how other countries are making these things, how they are cloning Shanghai, or how with other softwares Helsinki is being cloned. No? This is one of the references in the world that is something really interesting. No? How Dubai is doing the same, and how this is not only for urban scenarios, but also for rural scenarios, let's say. No? So in this case, how you can follow with satellites, with SAR satellites, you can follow the movement, for example, of Earth. No? And how, for example, one company like Airbus has created this, for me, is a fantastic airplane that can be flying during 100 days. Everything that you can see are solar photovoltaic cells. And this means that they are able to make these flights around the world during 100 days continuously. But the nice thing is that this is Barcelona. I asked them, what do you have about Barcelona? And they have been scanning Barcelona with this airplane, and they have this information from this airplane. So they can have exactly how are all the pedestrian and the roads and the streets that we have in our city. This is Plaza Catalunya, or in our beaches. And the nice thing is that this can be live. So you can see during this air flight what is happening in your city. So this can be something interesting to have more information, etc., etc. But for me, in this way of trying to find this science of why and not the science of where, or complementing the science of where, is how this can be used to follow fires, for example. And this is really useful, because you have real life all the information of what is happening in our mountains, for example. No? So I'm trying to do the same, and we are working in a workshop to try to demonstrate that this is possible in one of the villages. This is where my grandfather born. It's called Castel de Cabra. There are only 82 inhabitants, and we want to make digital this little town. And to try to extract all of this information, all of this data, and to demonstrate that you can apply it wherever, in any place that you could need this data. And these are my clients, because this is the people that Camper, the shoemakers, made here an advertisement, and this is the people that you can find right now in this village. And this is something amazing, because with the data that we have already, our open data that exists, you can begin to make volumetric scenarios, and in order to demonstrate that the scale is important. Here you have the picture of the guy that has been the tallest guy in the world. And you see the difference. And the difference is that, So the stairs have to be different. The car has to be different. Including the camera would have to be different to have this guy in the same picture. And this is something that is what we have to include in our new way of working. This is the implementation of BIM in the area Metropolitana de Barcelona. By the moment, I think it has been one of the biggest, because we had to train 124 technicians to include BIM in their way of doing. So they are an office of architecture, an office of engineering, an office of maintenance, etc., for all of the region in Barcelona, that it's about 3 million people. And we are already demonstrating the usefulness of all of this methodology. And they have all of this information in an open way. So the BIM guide is open for any other public body that could need specifications and the organization of the project, the parameters that you have to use for AFC, the quality control, etc. This is in Catalan. This is our language, and all of this information is inside the website in order that other people could be using it. The explanation of how it has been I'm finishing, and the question if this is important, or if we have a real value for that. And I bring this geospatial report that is talking about data, and something that is interesting is that this market is quite big. Right now, it's quite big, and bigger, near 50% more, in only 3 years more. And in 2030, you can see that it has been multiplied by more than 2. So let me go further in order that I can explain you and finish here. We are trying to make digital maps. We are trying to make digital models. We are trying to make our digital construction. But at the end, there is still people that is making maps in this way. So we have to try to transform this science of where into the science of why. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ignasi. That was very eye-opening for me. For 3 years, I have not been able to travel like most of us. Coming to these kinds of events really is an eye-opener for me. I had no idea of the BIM mandates, much less, or BIM requirements and standards, much less GIS inclusion in those in Spain. So thank you for opening my eyes and informing me. And I really like the science of where and the science of why coming together. Thank you for all the references to Esri as well.